You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. And Carl, the Giants continue to tinker with the roster. We'll get into that, adding help at the defensive tackle position and everything else that's going on with the team right now. But it feels like all systems go post-draft now with Coach Harbaugh. And I'm getting excited for the start of the season for sure.
Yeah, I think they are really, and you give both Coach Joe Shane and John Harbaugh credit. Now, they have continued to invest a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball. It just didn't work out last year, but it wasn't for lack of spending and trying. This season, you lose a game record when he's right in Dexter Lawrence, but you are looking to replace the production, not the player. And when you read the name DJ Reader, Shelby Harris, Fotu, Zach Pickens, and Bobby Jamison Travis, they're going to have fresh bodies. All of those guys have a profile, like DJ Reader, Shelby Harris, and which the kid and Sam Roberts, all have this explosive athleticism to them, but they're also space eaters. They're just not guys who will clog a hole. They get off blocks and they get to the football. Again, you're not replacing the player. You're replacing the production, and they're doing it in aggregate. So I like what they're doing. I also like the fact that there will be rotational players that will have expectations of, playing at a certain level. There should not be an expected drop-off when one guy goes down, and I think he's going to keep them fresh.
Carl, it's kind of interesting, right? When you look at the profile, too, of the players that they're bringing in, these are tried and true veterans, not all-stars by any stretch of the imagination. But, you also have to think of how does Darius Alexander develop going into year number 2 now? He wasn't drafted by this coaching staff, but he's a player that certainly has a lot of upside to him. And you bring in these veteran players, and you have to be really excited about what they're going to be able to do. We know what they have as far as guys that can get after the passer with, who they have on the roster: Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Arvell Reese. You're bringing these guys into the mix, but you're going to have some guys up front that you can rotate in, keep fresh, and be able to be multiple as far as not being very static as far as who's in the game, who's not in the game. So I think what they're kind of doing is pretty smart, to try to fill the void of what, Dexter Lawrence meant for this football team over the last couple of years. Now, we all know what it looked like last year, looked like a shell of himself, but we're looking at it as, how do you replace the production of the productive Dexter Lawrence? And I think the Giants have addressed that in a bunch of areas.
Right. Yeah, and when you're bottom 5 of the league versus the run, there's a lot that needed to be improved. So the linebacker position, the inside linebacker position has been addressed with productive players. Now your defensive line, Roy Robinson Harris, Darius Alexander, two guys that will get better, continue to get better. Roy Robinson Harris is a really good football player. Darius Alexander continued to play well. Like, we're not so concerned, and I'm not saying this to minimize Roy Robinson Harris or Darius Alexander, but their pass rush, they're going to be in a lot of different actions, but they're not the main pass rushers for this team. They got a ton of those guys that can get after it. They will be conduits to the success of the Giants pass rush because they are athletic, they're active, and they can create a lot of movement in the different actions that Denard Wilson's going to put them in. But the one thing that you really want to see is how do they earn the right to rush the passer, right? How do they create second and long situations? That's where they're going to be counted on. And that's not to say that Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux are not going to be tasked with the same thing, because teams, when they realize during the course of the game they can't run up the middle, then they're going to try to run the edges. And if those hold up, now you've earned the right to get after the passer for 2 straight downs, second and long and third downs. So everybody has a key role. And that's what I like about the way this personnel grouping is constructed, because you have rotational bodies. It's not like, okay, you're going to take DJ Reader out and then the teams are going to feel like they can run the football. I make this analogy, and this is not about the players, it's about the production and the process. If you look at the Giants-Detroit game, every time Dexter Lawrence was not on the field, they were worse against the run. When he was on the field, they were better. They weren't great, but they were so much better, and they didn't run at that cavity that was there with the extraction of Dexter Lawrence. Now you have bodies, experience, strength, and athleticism that gets to rotate in. And what I also like is that you have veterans. These guys are in their 30s, but you have Darius Alexander, Bobby Jamison, Travis are going to learn from those guys. They're going to get a few cliff notes to make their job easier in how they can execute.
Yeah, Carl, as you well know, and this is not a knock on anybody, but it also helps on the back end tremendously, right? If you could stifle off that run. What does Harbaugh talk about? The hardest down is second and long to deal with.
Second and long, yeah.
Second and long is like you don't want to be in it, and you want to keep the other team in it as much as possible because it allows you to be extremely creative defensively. And
yeah,
Carl, you lived by that. Your teams lived on choking off the run and then playing the game on your terms. What you did in the 86 NFC Championship game, heck, what you did in San Francisco against the 49ers, or what you did in the Super Bowl, specifically against the Broncos, you forced the other team to play the game on your terms, and I think that's what Harbaugh is shooting for.
Well, because, Bob, when you have a team that takes as much pride in phase one, meaning stopping the run, as they do in stopping the pass, you become such a complete defense and you become a dangerous football team because it puts offensive coordinators in a real quandary every single play they call, because now you spend all week doing your scouting reports. You kind of figure, we're going to try this, and then we'll get to this pass, right? It changes the dynamic of play callers when your guys take the field and they shut you down left, they shut you down right, they shut you down in the middle. All of a sudden, you don't have the plays that you thought you could draw up, or you can say, okay, we're going to keep this play in our back pocket, and when their best interior linemen are in rotation, we'll run the ball.
Right.
No disrespect. This young man works really hard, but there's a drop-off when Chapman came in the game. And teams exploited that, right? This kid earned a roster spot. He's going to fight for one this year. But let's call it what it is. When either Lawrence or any of the other bigs were out and they had to put Chapman in the game, because the linebacker, interior linebacker position was equally as weak, it was just like, okay, we're going to pull this out of our pocket now. Lawrence is off the field. We're going to run.
Right.
Alexander's off the field. We're going to run. We knew teams would say if they could get to the second level at the linebacker level, they were going to have success anyway. So now you look at the rotational players, Reeder, Harris, Fotu, Pickens, Jamison Travis, Alexander, Roy Robinson Harris. They've got rotational Colston. They've got Golston, I'm sorry. They've got rotational players where everybody's going to be fresh in the expectation of the techniques that need to be executed, how they're playing. It won't change. So if your frontline guys on certain defensive calls are expected to push a lot offensive linemen back on the other side of the line of scrimmage, the backups walk in with that same mandate. It's no longer let's just hope he holds up type thing, right? Elijah Chapman doesn't have a big base, strong upper body, but they moved him all over the place. And again, you can't even tinker with him because the linebackers couldn't fill any areas either. You could see these big gaping holes, and that's been addressed, and I like that. The investment in the defense, but how they invested and where they're invested, is going to be a plus for this defense.
Yeah, and you know what else you mentioned? As you were rattling off all the names, Carl, I started to think about something. And what I thought about was they're not going to all be on the team. You don't carry. You're probably not going to carry that many defensive interior linemen on your roster, which means that instead of hoping to fill out your roster, you have maybe more than enough guys than there are seats for, which means that you're going to be uber competitive. Now, injuries always happen, but you're going to be uber competitive in just figuring out what your roster configuration looks like, raising the level, right? Raising the competition is clearly something that Harbaugh has been adamant about because, look, there's been times here when we've looked at the roster and sometimes you try to figure out, well, how they get in the 53, right? Like, who's going to make the 53? Okay, there's a glut at this position, but there's some deficiencies or lack of experience / talent at other positions.
Right.
It certainly feels like more and more now it's going to be harder to make this football team to start with.
And that's exciting because the competition is going to be great. Just look at the defensive backfield room, right? It's no longer looking at your roster saying, hey, boy, we hope we can get Deonte Banks to go and be better. We hope that Drew Phillips continues to develop. You don't have a choice now. You do not have a choice. The competition is going to be fierce at every position. They've got people there, and they've got talent. They brought free agents in, they drafted players, and then they got undrafted free agents. You're going to have the best roster from a competitive and production standpoint that the Giants have had in years. I mean, years. Because there's just no sitting back and saying, well, how do we apply our draft resources? Well, this guy's under contract, so we probably shouldn't draft this guy. Nope, they got best player available. Drop him in there. Let's see who rises. Right? They didn't look. I'm sure they have some type of positional value chart, but they don't look at it the same way, and they didn't look at it the same way as some of the draft prospectors because they spent more time evaluating fit to the roster. And when the best player is available, it's not, well, I don't want to draft him because I can't sign him in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. It's, this guy's going to make us good. We'll cross that road when we get to it because I don't know why this draft value thing is just stuck in my craw, but Parcells used to always have a saying too, in football, some things take care of themselves. Injuries occur, right? And, things happen. It's a physical sport. And so you can't look 5 years down the line because there are no perfect scenarios in football. Players get injured. Things happen. And so you get the best players so that in case one of those things happen, you're not left trying to fill that void and you have to wait till next year or 2 years from now. So the fact that the competition on the roster on both sides of the football, look at the interior line situation now. Hey, yeah, they drafted Evan Neal, and Evan Neal will have a chance to compete, but he ain't competing against the same guys that were there last year, right? Could he beat some of those guys out if Evan Neal was at Evan Neal's best? Probably could, right? As a guard. Not anymore. You got a clean slate, but you're competing now. They brought guys in. They got guys in there. So if you're going to get to a starting position as a Giants interior lineman, you're not competing against the roster that was there last year. You're competing against a lot of guys they brought in, guys they drafted, and they're going to put the best players on that field, both sides of the football. What I would also like to see, and they've got wide receivers, but I'd like to see them drop Odell in the mix too. Because Jalen Hyatt, you got a clean slate. You're fast, you're all these things, right? Darius Slayton, who I know is going to compete. Everybody has a clean slate. You had a lot of drops last year, uncharacteristically. You think the attention to detail won't be there in that wide receiver room now? Right. And like I said, if you drop Odell in, and I know fans are, he's to this, drop him in there, right? He's not going to have a $10 or $15 million contract. Whatever that number is.
He's going to play around the vet minimum.
Right. But you put him in there. I don't worry about upsetting the apple cart, right? The apple cart has been tipped over. The apples are on the ground. You're picking up the best ones and putting them back in the cart. You drop him in there and see what the competition looks like, because he's going to catch the football. He don't drop him. He runs disciplined routes. He works hard. Will he be the best player in the room? We don't know. But I know one thing, that competition will produce better than you've ever had at that position in the last 5 years. You got one sure thing when he's healthy. and that's Malik Neighbors. And Malik Neighbors will get better with a guy in the mindset of a Odell Beckham. Again, if you can afford him, drop him in the room and see what happens. That level of play will go up.
Yeah, and the thing that, first of all, only the people inside 1925 Giants Drive have any idea of what the real recovery arc and when really you can expect to see Malik Neighbors at his full strength.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything else that you read is just everybody's guessing. It's as we're recording this right now, it's May the 6th. We're a long way away from opening day to this point. But I don't disagree with you as far as adding competition in the room, adding a presence to the room. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. And the only other reason why I would be on board with this, Carl, or why I am on board, and you've kind of gotten me thinking this way, is he did play for Harbaugh once before. So there is a working relationship between the two. They know each other. Like an inexperienced young head coach, maybe a couple of years ago, I'm not sure I would have been wild about that situation. But it's not like a player like Odell's going to come in and steamroll some newbie. They already have a relationship.
And that relationship is based on the expectations, right? When Odell was in Baltimore, he knew what the expectations were. And he showed up, did what they asked him to do. And you could tell there were expectations because there were times when me as a spectator thinking, why don't they have Odell on the field in this situation? Well, because they had the guys that they wanted on the field at that time. That's the expectation here in New York, is that you're going to trust this head coach and his staff and the decisions they make from week to week, from down to down. John Harbaugh does not do things that are not conducive to winning. Now, he ain't been undefeated his whole career, but he's won enough damn football games for me to trust in his decision-making process. And I know that when these teams take the field, they will know what is expected of them, and that's what gets me excited. Offensively, a guy like Isaiah Likely is a high-level player. You think he's not going to impact that tight end room? You think if a play is called and you're wide open, that you're now going to be dropping footballs as a tight end when it's an opportunity to advance your team, to put a game away, right? These are the things that not only in theory, they'll be implemented in practice. These guys will have a mindset of knowing the importance of valuing the football. They will understand that when we call this play, you're going to be open. You better catch it. Because when we call this play, it's going to be at a time in the game where we need it, and we found the matchup that works. Our quarterback is expected to put the football on you, and you're expected to catch it because we've drawn up the blocking, we've drawn up the routes, and we got the matchup we needed. We don't expect you to come to the sideline after a drop and we give you an attaboy. We know you don't intend to drop footballs, but the expectation is now to catch it. It's not a 50-50 proposition. If 3 of the 4 things go right, then you got the blocking right, you got your route correct, and the ball is delivered to you on time, and you drop it wide open, that's not acceptable anymore. And there's no attaboys. Attaboys come next Wednesday in practice. But
Well,
you drop one of those, it's not okay. That's the expectation, that these players will practice. It will be in theory. They will study it. And the reason it will be that way, Bob, is because the competition will produce a higher level of focus. When you put good players in the football, on a football team, in a meeting room, and on a practice field, or you start looking around the room, it's no, oh, he's going to be behind me this week, or he's going to be no. You guys are all competing, and you're going to focus on the little things because you know that will be the expectation amongst the New York football giants, as Coach Harbaugh likes to say.
Well, you talked about a little bit like the scholarship is over. You know, like a perfect example is Theo Johnson. The Giants were very excited. Davis was very excited when the Giants drafted him. And there were things that you liked in that first training camp. There was an injury. And then, hey, there were plenty of things last year that you like about Theo Johnson. However, Isaiah Likely has now just moved the bar to a different level because consistency, like if you remember the game in Philadelphia that they wound up losing, they had a chance to win that game. Remember, he had a big drop on a third down inside the 15-yard line or whatever, and it really kind of flipped the complexion of the game. I don't know if the Giants wound up missing a field goal or something, but like that standard that you're talking about, the same thing goes for like Deonte Banks, in the sense that the Giants didn't pick up his fifth-year option. That was just announced last week. Fifth-year options that got picked up. You know, Kayvon Thibodeaux got his fifth-year option picked up because Kayvon Thibodeaux was a productive player. Has he risen to the level of where he got drafted? Probably not. But he had enough production to get his fifth-year option picked up. Evan Neal's was not. And on the 23 class, I mean, remember, they drafted Colton Hood. And basically this is like to Deonte Banks. All right, Debo ain't going anywhere. Contractually, we're tied to him. We are not picking up your fifth-year option for the 2027 season. Make us make a hard decision. Go out and play now because there's no more excuses or alibis or whatever as far as
here's the
concerned.
thing also. Paulson and Debo's got to show up too.
Absolutely.
So they can't move on from him. But like I said, the competition in the room, they're going to put the best players out there. They drafted Paulson and Debo because he's a good corner. He's been a good corner in the league.
Well, they signed him, yeah.
Yeah, signed him. That doesn't mean that you go into the season saying, I'm good. They're going to make you bring your game up to the level of where you were signed as a free agent. When they scouted you, and he's dealt with injuries, so this is not a bashing of Paulson and Debo, but we expected more from him, and injuries didn't give us that. And then a bad defensive front wouldn't allow that. And then bad defensive linebackers, interior linebackers, wouldn't allow that, right? So all of these things are going to come together, but in that room, there's Colton Hood, right? There are going to be players that are going to push starters because Deonte Banks was drafted to be a starter. He had a really good year under Wink Martindale. Same with Kayvon Thibodeaux. So when we do the revisionist history thing and we separate all the additions, and fans will be like, well, you know, Kayvon had double-digit sacks when he played in a defense similar to Wink Martindale's or similar to Denard Harris's because Wink Martindale was an aggressive press man guy. Well, Deonte Banks was incredible in press man coverage under Wink Martindale. All of those things are true. But guess what? You're going to have to be that good with better competition in the room now. So don't assume the bounce back is going to be, well, now that he's in a system, he can go out and get it. Nope. Everybody else is in the same system now too. How about that? Everybody else is in a system that's conducive to their skill set too. So it's not just like, okay, well, Shane Bowen didn't use Deonte Banks right. That's true. And Banks had things to work on, right? And he was a very frustrating player to watch. Well, now you've got that system, but you also got competition. And they drafted competition. So in that room, and same with Kayvon, right? Now, I'll tell you this about Kayvon. He ain't going to shy away from the smoke, right? People don't like him, but what he does every year until he gets hurt, he shows you something that he got better at in the offseason. That's not going to change with him. He always works on something. So when that competition hits that room, there's a lot of bodies at that position. Everybody got to vie for playing time, right? I'm going to tell you why Kayvon Thibodeaux will be on the field a lot, because he can play the run. He can play the run. And that means if you can play the run, you can play on play action downs. Because if this defense does what I suspect it will against the run, then teams are going to have to play action on first down to try to get something going, right? They're going to have to try to play action and get a ball out to get 4 or 5 yards. He's good at that too. So if you're good against the run and you're a skilled pass rusher, Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to have some opportunities, and he's going to be on the field a lot because he can play run pass option downs, meaning those play action pass downs, because when you see them big bodies in front of you and you're saying, okay, we're going to have to audible. We got to go to play action pass. He can get after it, right? So if you don't understand, and a lot of our listeners and viewers are not of an age group where there was a Harry Carson, a Pepper Johnson, a Gary Reasons, a Carl Banks, a Lawrence Taylor, Andy Hatton, a Byron Hunt, just to name a few. And there were a few other ones in there, right? Where you look in that room and there's Andy Hatton, who runs as fast as Arbel Reese, ran a 4.42 in the 80s, right? Big, right? Byron Hunt, 6'7", ran a 4.49 in the 80s. All of us in that room. And when Harry says, so what the hell are you going to do to get on the field? Those words rang very, very loud, because you look around the room and you better find out something you can do, and it got to be better than everybody else, because there ain't going to be a drop. The expectation would not be to drop off. So that is what they have in there at a lot of positions. Interior linemen. Clean slate don't mean that you got a cakewalk to start. Clean slate don't mean if you work hard, you're going to start. Clean slate means you're going to compete. And you're going to have to be your best. So whatever they drafted you at, Evan Neal, these guys got a head start, some of them, but you better be that dominant player. So it's just not a matter of, okay, they're gonna watch me and I'm gonna develop and then I'm gonna get to where I need to be. You got to skip a step now. Deonte Banks, you got to skip a step. Like, the training wheels are off in terms of attaboys, right? Theo Johnson, training wheels are off now, because the reason Isaiah Likely is a Pro Bowl player in this league is because he's focused, he's disciplined, and he catches the football. You're focused, you're disciplined, but you drop footballs, right? The expectation now is that you've got to be all those things in order for this Giant team to be what it needs to be. And they are If you talk to Coach Harbaugh, and we know if you've been around this game long enough, you know that the difference between losing and winning are a few plays. You look at your Denver game that the Giants were in. You look at the Detroit game. There are so many games where the difference in attention to detail, a drop pass, a missed tackle, a blown assignment could have been 3, 4, 5 more wins for this team. The expectation is that those things will be taken care of because they're going to put players on the field that will go and get that done.
Yeah, I mean, the only players that get a benefit of the doubt of development are the ones that are in Harbaugh's rookie draft class. Anybody else?
Well, right. But those kids, you think Arvell Reese is going to be attaboy throughout? No. You know what they said to him? He's an interior linebacker. He's our weak side linebacker. He's going to study that position. So all those other things that we get excited about, the development, the potential of this, he ain't getting that until he can play inside linebacker well. And he can blitz from that position. Those are going to be the two things he's going to have to be good at. Blitzing from that position and playing inside linebacker on every down. And they'll sprinkle the rest in, but his focus right now is be developing as an inside linebacker next to Tremaine Edmonds, right? Oh, and by the way, Micah McFadden, who is a very productive player, who has developed every year, is now going to have to push the rookie for time, right? Because when you got good players, coaches will find a way to put them out there. He's not a throwaway. Micah isn't. He's a productive player. They're going to have to find a way to get him. He's going to have to find a way to get on the field too, and he may end up being the guy that plays on some downs because Reese hasn't quite gotten there yet. And Reese is going to be there on other downs until Reese comes. But this is the competition that fans should be excited about. It's just not, it's not static anymore. It's not when you look at your depth chart and you see these things. No, that depth chart is going to be forged through competition and forged through standards. It's, again, the attaboy era is done. We'll get them next time era is over. There are expectations now. And this is not, again, I don't think this has anything to do with Brian Daboll, because I know he expected to win. He wanted his players to do certain things. But when you look at the allegiance to a bad defensive coordinator and the standards on defense were just awful, and it led to lack of production, drop off from your best player, a cornerback who you thought was going to have a bounce back season, awful. A safety who was a really good safety in college, now taking bad angles. Drew Phillips, who was a tackling machine the year before, now he just looks like a shell of himself, right? All of those things were, when you look at the coaching staff, what the expectations were of the players, and also the depth on the roster. Let's keep it
sure. That counts.
100%, right? There were drop-offs everywhere. You are literally using fix-a-flat in some areas. When guy go out, you got, Elijah Chapman, you're in. They're gonna run the ball at you. Let me see if I can inflate you enough so you can hold up on this play, right? DJ Davison, oh, he's out. Elijah, you back in now. Well, again, that's nothing against Elijah Chapman. He earned a roster spot. I sang his praises. I still sing his praises. But the competition now is a lot different, and he's going to have to do a lot more. I thought, hey, look, they put him back there at fullback too. Well, they got one of them from Baltimore.
Yep.
Right? So Chapman's going to be a good special teams player. He's going to be an asset if he makes this team on special teams. And his role is going to be a little different on defense, right? Or he may end up being a backup fullback. But because he is athletic, he's got good feet. He just doesn't have a big base. So if he makes the team, he will have earned it through competition. And I just love and I'm excited to see what this competition produces. Like this roster, every position with the exception of the quarterback, and he's going to be pushed to be better. It's going to be forced through competition.
Anything else on the current Giants before I get into some other business?
That's it.
All right. So the Giants are having their town hall on Monday, May the 18th at the Beacon Theater in Manhattan. For season ticket members, it's $15. Verizon is the presenting sponsor. General admission, so you don't have to be a season ticket holder, $25. Now, all the net proceeds will go to the Giants Foundation. So this is to raise money for charity. But this is going to be an awesome night because we're going to have John Harbaugh is going to be there. Joe Shane is going to be there. I'll do a panel discussion with them. We got Jackson Dart scheduled to appear. Cam Scatterboot scheduled to appear. Brian Burns scheduled to appear. Tremaine Edmonds scheduled to appear. Plus, Carl, you and Phil Simms, along with me, we're going to kick off the celebration of the 40-year anniversary of the 1986 Super Bowl champion Giants, which, you know, for the record and forever, is the first Giants team to win a Super Bowl. I hadn't won a championship since 1956, lost in a bunch of championship games, whether it was 58, 61, 62, 63. You guys delivered the first championship to the New York Giants in 30 years. Now it's the 40-year anniversary.
Yeah.
This night is going to be so much fun at the Beacon Theater. And again, for non-season ticket holders, it's $25 to get in. I can't wait to kick this thing off on Monday the 18th at the Beacon in Manhattan.
That's going to be so exciting. In celebrating that 40th anniversary, there are going to be a few big reveals during that town hall. I'm meeting with a few of my teammates later on today to do some real cool photo shoots. Phil, Otis, Pepper, Lawrence was under the weather, so we couldn't get him. But we've got some fun stuff. You know, there's a big starter reveal. And, you know, if you ask why starter, because starter was on the sideline in 86. And some of your favorite pieces and a few that you haven't seen before, I was able to unearth and this is the only thing I'm going to talk about as it relates to what's coming. I was able to unearth the official locker room T-shirt of that Super Bowl.
Really? Is that the one that Jim Burt was wearing when he climbed up into the stands?
No, that was his player T-shirt. That was what he wore in his play. But you know how it's a big thing now. You know, you guys put on the cap, and you know, as soon as the game is won, they put on the cap. Well, we have the official locker room tee. I was able to find that starter did for teams that won championships then. So that one's going to be fun. You know how I found it? I was in California. No, I'm sorry. I was in Miami at an NFL event for Art Basel. And this young lady comes up to me, and Eric Dorsey gave her his T-shirt. She used to live in this building, and she was a little tiny girl at the time. And Eric Dorsey gave her the locker room tee after the NFC East Championship. And I realized, I'm like, that's the same T-shirt. They did another version when we won the Super Bowl. And I told her, I said, do you mind if I take a film of you, and I'm gonna send it to you, Lindsay, so you can see this girl in the NFC East Championship jersey. And she let me take a video of her and everything. It was the coolest thing. And I was like, I gotta find the shirt. And because I'm looking, I'm like, she's wearing a starter Giants shirt. I'm like, Is that vintage or did you get that from PacSun? She tells a story of how her parents, big Giants fans, were in the elevator with her as a little girl, and there was Eric Dorsey. And they were talking, and Eric brings by his locker room T-shirt and gives it to her parents. And it was the coolest thing. So she had it on, and it was really cool.
I could have saved you a lot of research. You should have just gone to Paul Dottino's house. I guarantee you.
Yeah, that part right there.
But this is going to be a fun night. You know, if you go to Giants.com and the Giants social media platforms, we kind of kicked things off a little bit last year. Me, you, Phil Simms, Mark Collins, O.J. Anderson, we sat down and did a roundtable where we just kind of discussed some moments. And you could find some of that. I don't know, what did we sit for, like 2 hours?
Yeah.
You can go find those segments. They live on Giants.com, and there's going to be more content coming out as we get closer to the season. But again, the Giants Town Hall will be at the Beacon Theater on Monday night, May the 18th. It is going to be awesome. Coach Harbaugh and I are going to sit on the stage, and we're going to do a little conversation for the fans, get a feel for him, Joe Shane, coming off this draft, and then Jackson Dart, Cam Scatteraboo, Tremaine Edmonds are scheduled to appear along with Brian Burns, and they're going to add more names. So Nate Burleson and Sean O'Hara are going to be part of this group discussion, and then I'll be spearheading the 40th anniversary discussion. So again, all net proceeds go to the Giants Foundation. Season ticket holders, it's $15 a head. And for non-season ticket holders, it's $25 a head. So I think this thing is going to go fast. So go to Giants.com and figure out how you can get your tickets. But, it's just the energy with the current and the energy with the 40-year anniversary and so many of your teammates getting together. I mean, when we did the 100-year celebration at Madison Square Garden, with your group from 86 and 90, with Parcells and Coughlin and combining the 4 championship teams, was one of the most memorable, most satisfying and proud nights of my career. Like, it was just awesome. Like, to get a text from Bill Parcells 3 days later while I'm working a golf tournament asking me, do I think it went well? And I was like, Coach, like, not only was it unbelievable, out of the park, and I would expect the Beacon Theater night, May the 18th, with the Giants Town Hall to be that kind of night for Giants fans. So get your tickets, $25 for non-season ticket holders, $15 for season ticket holders. All net proceeds will go to the Giants Foundation. It's going to be a blast.
And because the Giants Foundation is a 501c3, you're donating to a good cause, and you can write that off as well. So,
all right,
it's well worth. That ticket is well worth it, folks. That's going to be a fun night.
Anything else?
Just this right here.
Yeah, we want to thank the people at FanDuel. How we like to end it: tell a friend to tell a friend. Believe in Giants.
Believe in Giants.